Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be talking about which of the new unbanned cards will have the most effect. Which one are you going to see the most of? Which one are you going to potentially see, but it's just going to be like, why was this banned to start off with? So as of last week, there was 5 new unbanned cards. Each one was previously banned from Commander and is now a game changer, which means they're restricted to bracket 3 or above. This is the first time since 2021 that there's been unbans in Commander, which I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like more unbans is good as long as they're kind of, restricted like this game changer kind of thing is. So that's great. Some are way stronger than others, and there's definitely one that I think is worth watching. And as soon as I saw that it was unbanned, I went and picked up multiple copies of it because I need it for so many different decks. So let's get into it. So the first one here is Coalition Victory. So this is a very easy to achieve win con, right? You just need to have a basic land or a land of each basic land type. So if you've got like a forest swamp, that does count for 2 different ones. You just need to have a forest, a swamp, an island, and mountains, and a plains. And you also need a creature of each color. That does mean a creature that is multiple colors does count towards this. So if you've got a 5-color creature out, that's all 5 of your colors done. It does cost 8 mana. So some commanders that this could work well with, just any kind of 5-color commander this could be great with. I think, something like Jorodot can work as an alt win con there. With Omnath, for example, you're going to have a lot of extra mana there potentially, as well as you get like the mana from revealing something at the top. So you could potentially tutor this to the top, have Omnath out, and then play this for a win, and you get like the 3 extra mana there. It works very well with stuff like, Philagi Wayfarer there that has all colors, and giving all your multicolored spells Convoke as well is great. Obviously, tutoring as well. So you want to make sure that you're most likely tutoring this if you're going to use it as your win con. That's if it is your win con. Like, it could just be something that you add into your 5-color deck. It's just to say, hey, the game's getting on. I've got, somewhere that I need to be. I'm going to play this. So overall, kind of, you've also got stuff like the Leyline of Guild Pact or Dryad of the Elysian and Grove to kind of fix the land stuff. So these kind of fix the creature stuff with like Philagi. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Wayfarer there. But like the Leyline of Guild Pact, Dryad of the Elysian Grove fix your mana, your lands. Then you have every basic land type there. My verdict is, this, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. It's kind of pretty broadcast that people are getting there. If they're playing a 5-color commander or something, that it's there. It's quite expensive to cast as well. And overall, it's just kind of an alt win con that other alt win cons are just better than, right? Like, it's going to cost you 8 mana. It's very broadcast and stuff. I just think that there is cards that are going to have a lot more impact that are unbanned, maybe potentially not even game changers, than this. All right, into the next one here, we've got Panoptic Mirror. So this is imprint an instant or sorcery onto this, and you get to cast it for free at the beginning of each of your upkeeps. This can do some pretty bonkers combos, right? Like, if you've got any extra turn spell, it instantly becomes a bracket 4 deck, and because you can just repeatedly have extra turns and everything, you could just use it for more fun things, which is what I think is better off for. Like, I could potentially use this in my Celestial Toymaker deck for like a fact or fiction, so that way I get that kind of constant fact or fiction that I need for that deck. There's a bunch of different things you could imprint onto this that are going to be a lot more fun than extra turn spells, but extra turn spells is what you imprint onto it if you want to kind of win the game. So there's commanders that work really well with, like Shiko Narset is bonkers with this, because this is just going to be, because you imprint the card and then you copy the card rather than copy the actual spell. Shiko Narset counts this as you casting your first spell for turn, and then whatever you cast second is going to be, copied or drew your card. Obika with like the extra upkeeps and stuff goes really well here as well. As I said about kind of imprinting some more fun stuff on here, natural order, you could imprint a natural order onto here and then just be able to constantly tutor up some, big creatures onto the battlefield. You've got Jeska's Will here if you just want to kind of win the game, I guess, create a huge amount of mana and exile the top 3 cards of your library. There are a bunch of ways to be able to deal with this, though. It's got a huge impact on the game. If you've got ways to have extra upkeeps or just strong spells to put under it, definitely. But your opponents can kind of easily answer it, right? Unless you put an infinite turn spell under it. Like, if you put infinite turn spell under it, then it's unlikely they'll have a way to be able to deal with it. But or like anytime soon, because if they can't deal with it straight away, they can't deal with it in the future, most likely, unless you're giving them card draw somehow, I guess. But you just need to make sure you protect it and stuff. But I think that, put an infinite turn spell under it if you want to win the game. Put a more fun spell under it if you want to just kind of have more fun. Now, if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you head on down, become a member and stuff like that. Subscribe. Members get early access to some videos and everything like that. I got to start doing a bit more of those. Had a bit of flat out kind of week and stuff. And make sure you head on over to Quokka Mousepads and pick up a mousepad from there. They have amazing mousepads. You can create custom ones. I've got a custom Gambit one and Karlach one that I absolutely love. So next up, we've got Gifts Ungiven, and oh boy, this is insane. So this is a fact or fiction that tutors instead of to the top of deck, right? You're going to look for 4 cards from your deck. You're going to, someone's going to choose 2 of them to put them into your graveyard, and then you get to put the rest into your hand, so you get to potentially keep 2 cards. This is instant speed, which I kind of missed the first time I looked at it. It is actually bonkers because it's instant speed. There are so many decks that just don't care about things being in the graveyard, right? And even then, like, depending on what you're tutoring up, it doesn't matter if they go into the graveyard because you're going to still get 2 insanely strong cards to your hand. Flashback, recursion, etc. are all very usable. Some commanders that can make use of this, Muldrotha being able to allow you to cast either play lands or cast spells from the graveyard is great. Glab, Calamity's Augur, is amazing with this because you're going to be able to put those things in your graveyard. Glab usually has some kind of recursion into the deck and stuff as well. You can put some big mana stuff into the graveyard. There's lots of great ways you can kind of make use of it in both of these decks there. You got Sabine's Reclamation or Tortured Existence, both ways for you to be able to make use of the things that go into the graveyard, whether it's just straight up reanimating them, or whether it's, you can discard cards into your graveyard, bring stuff back and everything. There's lots of ways to be able to make use of that. Just be able to kind of, hey, you put my 2 cards into my graveyard. I don't care that they're in there. They are still essentially in my hand because I will be able to cast from there. So my verdict is this is definitely going to be a seeing play. So this is definitely worthy of that game changer title. It will potentially be a huge win con in so many decks. It only costs 4 mana. As I said, instant speed. You can abuse it in so many different ways. Keep in mind that in a Shiko and Narset deck, this does target opponent. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards. So therefore, you will get to copy it with Shiko and Narset. Yeah, it's so easily abusable. And there's just so many ways that this is going to be able to make use of. Again, as soon as I saw that this one was unbanned, I went and grabbed multiple copies of it because I've just got so many decks that can make use of it as well. Next up, we've got Braid's Cabal Minion. So she is a very, very stacksy commander, or I think just in a 99, she's not quite as bad. She is still a stacksy card in the 99, just not quite as bad. She's not super fun to play against, I don't think, as a commander, but she could be insanely strong, especially if you can kind of pump her out turn 1, which there is multiple different ways to be able to do that. You're just locking people out of the game very, very easily. In decks like Tergrid or Carmen, she's going to work very well. Tergrid means that you're going to be able to get all of those non-token permanents people sacrifice back onto your side of the battlefield, which means that from there, Braids is going to be able to sacrifice those again. And then we've got Carmen here, who's just whenever an opponent a player sacrifices a permanent, you're going to gain a life and put a +1 onto it. You're going to get, multiple different turns of this, get a huge Carmen. And then when you attack with Carmen, you can then bring things back as well to have to sack with Tergrid anyway. Sack with Braids anyway. Stuff like Bitter Blossom works incredibly well here as well because you're going to create something that you're able to sacrifice very easily there. Just every upkeep, you're going to create that fairy that you can then sack with it. And then Morbid Opportunist to just give you a huge amount of card draw because each turn someone's going to potentially sacrifice a creature. Otherwise, they're sacrificing, their other stuff, their artifacts or their lands, which most likely they want to keep more. Honestly, I think this one's pretty meh. Like, as a commander, it's just not going to be fun to play against unless you're using some kind of weird build. Personally, I think that if someone brought this out as a commander, I'm not sure if I'd want to play more than 1 game against it. And even then, I'd have to be more careful as to which deck I play against it because there's some of my decks that this would just get completely locked out in. Now, in the 99, I think this is a lot better. And I think I would enjoy it a lot more if it was, just in the 99 of someone's deck. It's got a huge value piece. It can be nuts in the right decks. She's pretty vulnerable to removal, though. The issue with it is that the fact she makes people sack their lands means that potentially you won't get to use removal on it because you may not have lands if you didn't have creatures to sacrifice. She's kind of easily dealt with, though, as long as she's not kind of turbo pushed out. Now, the final one here is Sway of Stars. So this is a big reset the game card. Everyone's going to shuffle their hand, graveyard, and permanents they control into their library, then draw 7 cards, and then each person's life total is going to become 7. It is very, very interesting. It is essentially, as I said, reset the game, take everyone down to 7, and let's play from there. Now, keep in mind that poison counters will stick and stay here, which I probably should have put into the commanders that I've got here. But either way, the 2 commanders that I was showing here are the 10th Doctor and Joyra, both for the same reason. Both of them are going to put a whole bunch of cards into exile, or both decks will put cards into exile with time counters on them, with suspend, and then after those suspends tick off, then boom, you're going to be able to play those cards. So the way this would work is you put this card, the Sway of the Stars, into play. After the next turn, you've got a bunch of things coming in from either the 10th Doctor or Joyra. That way you're going to still have your board up. You don't have to worry about the fact that, hey, all of my stuff's been exiled. Not exiled, shuffled in, and now I have no board. Because then on the next turn, you bring out a huge board potentially. Other stuff like, Perch Protection or Lagrella. So Perch Protection I've got in here because it's going to phase out all your permanents. That means, and also your life total can't be changed. So that means your life total will not be taken down to 7. You could potentially stay on, your 40 life or whatever. And all your permanents phase out. So therefore they are not affected by the Sway of the Stars shuffling you in, because technically they act as if they don't exist. You do need to promise that extra turn for someone, but realistically, if you're casting Perch Protection, and then, with, you cast, how do you do this? You cast the Sway of the Stars, and then with that on the stack, so that's 10 mana, keep in mind. You cast the Perch Protection, which is another 6 mana. Your stuff's all going to phase out, and then from there, everyone else's stuff gets shuffled in. It's a pretty huge card to make it so that you have all your board still and no one else does. Lagrella here, that's going to exile all your other creatures until she leaves the battlefield. Keep in mind, you're then going to shuffle her in later on once you cast your Sway of the Stars. So then now, all of a sudden, your stuff is going to, come back in once Lagrella leaves, and then you've got a huge board of creatures and no one else does. So my verdict is, this is potentially just a huge win con, right? In certain decks, if you can make it one-sided. If you're not making it one-sided, please don't cast it. You're literally just extending the game for no reason, most likely. Unless, it should lead to a win, I think. If you're going to have this in your deck, I think it should lead to a win. Otherwise, you're potentially just making a more boring and long drawn out game, because everyone will have no lands. So they're literally just starting from having to play a land, and etc. You don't want to get rid of your own board, obviously, here. I just think it's a very niche card and doubt we're going to see much of it. But if you're running one of those commanders that can kind of, either phase out things or keep them in exile or whatever, or suspend them, then it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to be a great card potentially to add into that. So I'd love to hear from you guys. That's what you think. Did you buy any of these? Are you running any of the newly banned cards? How have they worked out for you and everything? Let me know down below. Have a great day and goodbye.